This is the Dirshu Mishnah Berurah, Simin Tes Vav, Sif Aleph through Gimel. All the learning has been sponsored as a tremendous chos. Ilan Neshama for Chaim Mordechai ben Naftali Tzvi, whose yahrzeit is coming up next week. Actually, at the end of this week, Mir Hashem, the learning the entire Chabura should bring Chaim Mordechai ben Naftali Tzvi to higher in place in Gan Eden Shamayla as we begin a new simin in halacha. Simin Tes Vav. As the Mechaber himself coins the simin, whether, it's almost a question in the title, interesting, are you allowed to transfer tzitzis from one garment to the next? Topic number one. Topic number two, Vidin Nikra Talis, and what happens with the talis that rips. And we're going to get involved right now in the halachas of Bizui Mitzvah. Ostensibly, if I take tzitzis from talis A to talis B, it's a bizayon, it's a denigration, that we're degrading the mitzvah. How can you take the tzitzis off of it and transfer it elsewhere? So says the Mechaber in Sevalev, Mutter Lahatir, Tzitzis Midal, Zev Lina Midal Sacher. Mechaber right away starts off quoting the Gemara Menachais that you're allowed to transfer the tzitzis from one garment to the next. Avol, Shalanicham Bebeged Acher Loi. But to take off the tzitzis, not to put it on another beged, that is not allowed. But says the Ramah, it's only if the talis is obligated. Talis of one who is nifter, you're allowed to remove the tzitzis. So says the Mishnah Berurah, Sivkat and Aleph, that you're allowed to take off the tzitzis from one garment, lit them and put on the next garment. Says Mishnah Berurah in the first white lines, if got an aleph from one new to another new garment. And certainly, and this is probably the common case or the classical case, you're allowed to take it off of an old talis and put on a new talis. Because you want to do the mitzvah with the newer talis. Gam, says Mishnah Berurah, talis katan. You can even remove it from a talis gadol, talis katan. Talis gadol, talis katan, shavim. They are both equal. And before we even continue this Mishnah Berurah, let's right away see the Dirshu over here that says the Dirshu. What does it mean that it's shavim? Says the Dirshu, and he points out there are differences. Let's not forget talis gadol is miyuchel tefillah, as we're going to see Mir Hashem in Simon Chav Aleph. And that is the reason that we all know you're allowed to lie down with your talis katan at night. And we know that you're allowed to rear your talis katan into the bathroom. And therefore, the Mishnah Berurah over here makes a quick mention, but talis gadol, we don't bring into the bathroom, that even though the Mishnah Berurah uses a lashon over here, that they're shavim, meaning that they're equal, that they both have the mitzvah of tzitzis, there are minor nuances. There is a bit of a higher level, at some level of kedusha with the talis gadol. We don't sleep with it, we don't bring it into the bathroom, etc. Continues the Mishnah Berurah in Sivkat and Aleph. We should not change it from the talis of a gadol, an adult, and put it on the talis of a child. Why? The chiyuv rak midrabanan of first cousins, that which we learned about. The kid tie your tzitzis. It's only the rabbanan, therefore you have to be more careful. Prima gadol this topic. Says the Prima Gadim, this goes back to our discussion, wool versus cotton. Prima Gadim is not sure. Are you allowed to take off the tzitzis from a talis of wool and put it on a talis of a different garment? According to the opinions, according to the opinions in which we've seen that hold that the other materials are only Rabbanan, as we mentioned back then. It's really a machlek is Mechaber Rabbah. Ramosha came along, and Ramosha bumped up the opinion of wool to even higher level. But regardless, the Prima Gadim is not sure. That says is allowed, and seemingly the Pasuk Halach would be there's a makam to be makel to transfer the tzitzis even from a wool to a cotton. If the Prima Gadim is mistapik, Dartas Chaim is mekel, it would seem to be there's a makam to be mekel. Says the Mishnah Berurah Sivkat Beis v'Talis Acher. Ayin Prima Gadim shekasaf de mitzuyim leitzitzis acherim lahasik v'vader tzitzis. Nachal nahach v'zol tzitzis. It's better not take them off. And lei ba'ifan amvur b'Sivkat Gimel, as we will see right now. Says the Mishnah Berurah in Sivkat Gimel, but to take them off and not to put them on another beged, that you should not do. But beged acher loy. Why? Ki ish iser shemivazeh tali shel mitzvah b'china. What are you doing? You're just taking off the tzitzis of a talis. You're embarrassing the talis of a mitzvah. Unless it got worn out. Then you're allowed to take them off always. Or you want to remove a corner, then so only now that I take off the tzitzis for no reason. If the garment is worn out, which is probably the most common case, one is throwing out the garment because it's disgusting, it's filthy, he needs a new one, then you're allowed to take off the tzitzis. You're not allowed to take off the tzitzis for selling the garment to a Jew. The other guy could put on tzitzis by himself. Says Mishnah Berurah. Your tzitzis are getting frayed. Your tzitzis are getting yellow. So you want to put on new ones? That's allowed. Hider mitzvah trumps all. Hider mitzvah trumps bizui mitzvah. Because you would think it's a bizui and it's kosher. What are you taking them off? No, for the hider of the mitzvah, you're allowed to take off the tzitzis to put on new ones. They're only putting on new ones. As we spoke about at length, one string rips, it's left k'dei aniva. It's kosher. It's really kosher, but you want to put on a complete one, that is allowed. Vidal says more, says the Mishnah Berurah, and then if Sivkat and Gimel. When the tzitzis are complete. Is only a little bit left. If you could reuse it, don't just snip it off. You don't want to destroy it. Don't destroy something. Those learning Daf Yomi, we had this recently. Don't spill out water for something that someone else could use. So if the tzitzis are still kosher, don't cut them off. Undo them so maybe someone else can use these strings. It's not so easy. And that chayadim is very important. Chayadim. I don't know if anyone has ever tried to undo the knots and undo the wines. It's not such a simple endeavor. It's definitely a tircha involved. And therefore, if one wants to say it's too difficult for me, I'm not going to reuse it. Maybe one could add on that we have such a plethora of tzitzis nowadays. There's room to be make like this chayadim and cut off the tzitzis when necessary. Bar chayuva filinu chayav rak midrabanan. Says in the Machaber Sif Beis, you can't cut off the corner with the tzitzis and sew it on to a new beged. You have to put the tzitzis strings on the corner. Can't take the whole corner with the tzitzis and put it on something else. It wasn't there when you made it. Let's just see Sif Gimel together. Ripped in half. And each half of the talis has a big enough portion to do itaf on. Each part is kosher by itself. And each one has one or two tzitzis. And also you're allowed to put on new tzitzis and make it kosher. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Sif Katan, hey, Eina Yachal. What's this going on? Excuse me. This Mishnah Berurah is going on. Eino Yachal Lika like Kanaf. You're not allowed to take the corner the way that it is and put it on a new garment. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Ayin Magen Avram Sivkatan Gimel, Umuchach Medvarav Didavka Kenav Shein Bo Shir Lesatif. It's only if it's not enough shear. Va'avt also begemara afilu mumachzik amal ama. Comes a dainin Bo Shir Yitav Ledidei. Avlim Haya Bechaticha Shir Sheiba Kedei Lesatif. If on that corner has a big enough shear, then you're allowed to combine it because it's considered its own beged onto itself, which is really what we're about to see in Sif Gimel. They're not so happy with this. And again, the rule of the Avol, that the Avol, the Mishnah Berurah says, the Taz, the Derechayim argue, it would seem that the Mishnah Berurah is paskening that is forbidden, that even if the corner of the part that rips off is a large piece, you cannot sew it on to a new beged. Without the tzitzis, you could attach it to new beged. And if it's the requisite 3x3, then put on tzitzis. Mikol shar beged ain't tzarich later klal. You don't have to worry about the rest. It has to be that the garment that you're putting it onto had the right size. if it cut off in a corner of an Azubas Gimel and now it only has 3 corners, v'niftra b'tzitzis, then you can't put on a new corner, leaving on the original tzitzis. Why? As we've seen many times, if the 4th corner rips off in a rounded portion, now the beged is a 3-cornered beged. So the tzitzis on there are possible. If you're going to go put on a new corner and make it a 4-cornered beged, now the tzitzis were made tasavlo and asli. Therefore, you'd have to remove them. The beged acher says Mishmur Sivkot and Zayin Avalim Yirta lechaber akanav lebeged shenekra mimenu. You want to put it back onto the beged that are ripped off. On afilu mikra ligam yivlu nashar kol shu bechiber. Ein tzarich lat menu atzitzis. A chiddush. If the corner rips off with the tzitzis and you want it sewed back on, that you're allowed to. V'lei misla mishadasav and asli. Why not? It was made bekashrus, so even though now it ripped off, you go to put it back on. Very important. As we just mentioned, if when the 4th corner ripped off, it was made into a 3-cornered garment, then everything's over, because now it's possible. But if, when it ripped off, it still was a 4-corner beged, then you can put back on the corner. The corner needs to be 3 by 3. Again, and obviously, it's a bit of a difficult machlekes in this tassel. So does it go by the corner? Does it go by the whole beged? But the Mishnah Berurah says that one has to be machmir. Sif Gimel says that the Machaber, what do we see in Sif Gimel? If the talus rips in half and each half has its own sheer itof, then what are you allowed to do? Then you are allowed to continue using that beged. It's not tasav lo mina asi. Says the Mishnah Berurah Sifkot and Chazu b'chol chelik avlam ein b'kol chelik kelis atif. If each part is not big enough, like our small talisas that rip in half, that don't have the requisite shear, it's over. Doesn't have the requisite size. You want to re-sew it up? What do you have to do? You have to undo all the tittas. One part has, one part doesn't have. Of course, the part that does not have the right size, but the part that has the right size, you can continue. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Sivkot and Tas, it's not a problem with Taslim and Asli, that Tzitzis in Nishru Ein Sham Psul Aleim, Kimin Jish Be'em Kidei Shir Itav, because since it has the Kidei Itav, it has the requisite size, therefore there's no problem. Alkein, Im Yirtzeh, Yochal Litzaref, La'oisei Chatzi. Listen to this one, you can take that half, Chaticha mi beged acher, a different garment, V'latzei Tzitzis Chadashim al Kanaf as a Chadashim, and put new tzitzis on the new corners. So you have a first half from the original garment that has the right size with 2 strings left. You take a new piece of material, sew it onto that piece, and on that new piece, put on tzitzis. V'kolshkin shechel latzos min achetzi tal shalim. Dainu shas with bead tzitzis al kanaf as a mechudashim. V'im yer tel chaber chalakish and schalko el chaver. You want to sew them back. Yesharim mitzarach metchila latzos tzitzis min achelik echad. You have to undo one side. V'achachal yitbarenu. Then sew it on. V'achash yitbarenu yatzvot tzitzis. Dim lo yatir, but if you don't, then you have 2 sides with tzitzis. Havichal tasom menasli. Avol roi v'achroinim mekilim. They're making even in this case with sayrim. It says that lo yavi v'chal tasom menasli. You can sew it together. Kol makom taiv la'achron l'chatchila. Pick it up from Sif Daled in Mirza Hashem.